Hello, my friends. Today, the situation along the entire front line remains tense, and once again, there is movement in the Kursk region. Let's start with the fact that the Ukrainian Armed Forces have begun advancing toward the village of Glushkova, and they managed to take control of the village of Vesele. They advanced here with 3 kilometers and 300 meters. They also managed to move eastward across the fields by another 1 kilometer and 700 meters. Essentially, the Ukrainian Armed Forces regained previously lost positions, but unfortunately, the Russians are slowly pushing them back as well. Changes have been recorded near the settlement of Koreneve, where the Ukrainian Armed Forces retreated by 900 meters. Additionally, there was an advance of 1 kilometer and 200 meters towards Lyubimivka near Snagost. The changes aren't massive, but they are significant and the fight continues. For the most part, FPV drones are being actively used and the Russians haven't stopped shelling both Russian territory and border settlements in the Sumy region. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue shelling border settlements with offensive actions recorded only near Vovchansk. However, there have been no changes along the front line in this area. In the Kupiansk direction, the situation remains difficult. It's important to note that the Russians are not only showing high activity around Pokrovsk, Toretsk, or Kurakhove, they are also heavily utilizing resources in this area. It seems they are in a hurry to achieve significant progress. The assaults here are relentless. Today they are attacking Kucherivka and Podole as they push toward Kupiansk. At the same time, fighting continues for Novosinove, and to the south they are storming Kruhlakivka. Although there have been no new changes in the past 24 hours, the situation is quite challenging as the Russians inch closer to their objectives. In the Svatove area, the Russians are not reducing their activity either. They are storming Lozova, attempting to break through to Vishneva and shelling Zeleny High. This suggests that they are trying to level the front line in this region as well as by capturing Andriivka and Vishneva. Further south, heavy shelling continues with attacks only been recorded near the village of Mykolaivka. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, that is the extent of the activity, but the Russian Ministry of Defense has claimed that they have already captured the village, though no information has surfaced to confirm this. We are waiting for further updates. In the Kreminna direction, the Russians continue the attacks on Nevske, despite earlier claims that they had already taken control of the village. Additionally, Russian forces are persistently trying to reclaim lost territory around Toretsk. After a period of relative calm, assaults have resumed in the Serebryanka forest, but there have been no changes along the front line in the past day. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are continuing their attacks near Bilogorivka and Verkhnyo-Kamenske, accompanied by shelling. However, the intensity of the activity is low, and the Ukrainian Armed Forces have successfully repelled all attacks, leaving the front line unchanged over the last 24 hours. In the Chasiv Yar area, the Russians continue their attempts to break through to the canal to establish positions on the outskirts of the city, though they have had no success so far. However, they are gradually making progress on the flanks. They are actively attacking Bilogora in an effort to stretch the front line in this region. Meanwhile, the shelling of Chasiv Yar and Kostiantynivka continues, but no changes have been reported along the front line over the past day. In the Toretsk direction, the Russians are pushing closer to the center of Toretsk with ongoing attacks near Sherbinivka and Nelipivka. Here, the Russians have made some advances, slowly moving forward. The Russian Ministry of Defense has confirmed the full capture of Nelipivka. However, despite their efforts, they have been unable to dislodge Ukrainian forces from the outskirts of New York, and the front line has remained unchanged in the past 24 hours. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are not reducing their activity. They continue to launch assaults in the areas of Mykolaivka, Vozdvizhenka, and across the fields toward Toretsk. However, they have been unable to stretch the front line here for over a month. The situation around Mykolaivka and Lysivka remains critical as the Russians are gradually advancing and actively assaulting these settlements. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are doing everything possible to hold the defense, as a breakthrough would allow the Russians to reach the outskirts of Pokrovsk and Mernograd, which would severely worsen the situation in this direction. Further south, the situation is also challenging. The Russians are breaking through to the outskirts of Selydove and attempting to secure their positions. Likewise, the assaults on Tsukuryne continue, but no new changes to the front line have been reported over the past day. The Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. The situation around Kurakhove is also tough. Here, the Russians are attempting to break through in the area of Georgievka and the village of Kostiantynivka. Several groups are simultaneously advancing toward Kateryivka and Yelizavetivka, and they are gradually making headway. The situation is difficult, with over 20 assaults recorded in just one day. In the Vuhledar area, the Russians haven't reduced their activity either. Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines are openly talking about the possibility of having to leave Vuhledar soon. However, the challenge lies in the fact that the entire area is under heavy bombardment, making retreat difficult. The Russian forces still maintaining a significant advantage in numbers and continue their attempts to break through toward Bogoyavlenka and trying to consolidate their positions. Reports are emerging that Russian flags have been raised on the outskirts of the city. The Russians have entered Vuhledar from the west and south. Today, they are not only publishing footage of shelling in the city's central areas where Ukrainian defense forces continue to resist, but also of the infantry moving inside the city and residential buildings. In the western part of the city, Russian troops have raised their flanks. This indicates that they are encircling the city from all sides, trying to push out the Ukrainian forces. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue to attempt to regain territory liberated by the Ukrainian forces during their counteroffensive. However, they have made little progress. While they managed to reclaim Robotyne, they have been unable to advance further. The Ukrainian forces repel all attacks, and as before, the front line remains unchanged. Despite this, the Russians continue to heavily shell the area, launched guided bombs toward Zaporizhzhia using aviation. In the Kherson direction, shelling also continues, but no new attempts to break through to the islands have been recorded, so the front line remains stable. Despite the liberation of Kherson by Ukrainian forces, collaborator Volodymyr Saldo continues to claim that Kherson is part of Russia.
Самое главное достижение – это то, что мы официально и общепризнанно являемся теперь частью большой, грандиозной страны России. Это если говорить о географическом положении. Ну и внутреннем положении каждого человека, живущего в Херсонской области, ну и наших товарищей на трех братских субъектов, конечно же, это возвращение домой всегда, это очень приятно.
That's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.